When I say I'm the universe, I'm frequently misunderstood. If you think about it, the universe, how could there be anything else? I'm just talking about a different perspective. This is only competitive or comparative if you think that you are something separate from the universe, which that's hard to understand, but maybe people do think that. If you don't think that, and when I say that I'm the universe, I imply that I'm you, that we are the universe. And I'm only talking about a different perspective. And that's my point when I say that. I also say I'm the wind and the light, the yin and the yang. The person talking to you, I'm just wearing this thing we call Charlie for provisional purposes, but underneath, this thing talking to you is enlightened to understand that he's the universe. It's either enlightenment or it's a particular psychosis that's passed down through Eastern mysticism and throughout many different teachers over centuries. So I like to say I'm the universe, or I'm the wind and the light. I sometimes say I'm the friend of the universe. I'm a good friend of the universe. And so lots of great things happen that are not easily explainable. And one other thing I might mean when I blurt out that I'm the universe, I might mean that I'm not going to cooperate from a mortal or limited perspective. I'm not going to be afraid. I'm not going to believe that there's some kind of limitation that I have to be concerned about. I live in a modern culture in America, and this is what I call the gorge of delusion. There's a word for mortality in Chinese. There's two characters, and it's mortality is the ford of delusion, mi jin. And a ford, I looked it up, it's just a small gap through the river. But I look around my world today and it's more than just a ford of delusion. It's more like a mountain gorge. The modern culture and its belief in mortality, materialism, separation from the universe, and its common insistence on these things. And so I'm changing the word a little bit and calling it Zijin, or mountain gorge, gorge of delusion. And so I try to explain. I have something I put on Amazon called the Immortal Perspective on who and what and where we really are. After a year or so of talking to various people in the culture and trying to explain myself, I say things like, besides saying I'm the universe, I tend to say things like I don't believe in reality. And so I go through the world and people complain about that. They say, Charlie, that sounds like denial. I see it. I said, okay, I see the altar of reality. I see it, I think it's beautiful, I try to cultivate it, but I don't believe it has anything to do with who or what or where I really am. The answer to that is the universe. So it's not just me who made this up. I read the Hindu Upanishads, for instance, and Brahman is the thing that wears the universe. Atman is myself, my provisional self, Charlie, in the world. And the unity of Brahman and Atman is unequivocally stated in the four great sentences. So the four great sentences are translated different ways, and here they've got it as consciousness is Brahman. I am Brahman. Same thing as saying consciousness is the universe. I'm the universe. And it goes on to say, you are the universe. And this Charlie that I'm wearing is the universe. So it's an apparent contradiction. The four great sentences that are sometimes called the core of Hinduism, and many other ways of translating it, they say the object is Brahman, the universe is Brahman. You are the universe, I'm the universe, this soul is the universe. In the modern world, my version of this is just to say I'm the universe. And so at other times I say I'm a friend of the universe. It's not a contradiction. It's like saying I'm the son of my parents. Sometimes I might say I'm a friend of my parents. Other times I might say I am my parents. So I'm Charlie 5. I'm a friend of the universe. I can communicate with an entity who calls itself the universe. I can say, good morning, universe. And I am as if something separate, so a friend of the universe, when I'm sitting here talking to someone. Then while I'm sitting in front of my altar, the one I build to represent the universe to myself, my Charlie 5, Channel 5 antenna, with my candles lit, working closely together with my friend, the universe, on a problem in a yoga of united consciousness, then that's when it comes closer to saying, I am the universe, or I'm united with the universe might be another way to say one of these four sentences, aham idam, I am this, or I am that. So my perspective is one of a mystic, for whom all the religions congeal into that one clarity at the upper level, while at the lower level they're each about cultural identities and exclusivity. At the mystic level, they're all about the same light that is all the creatures and the thing that wears reality as its earrings, my friend, the universe, that one thing we all really are. So this thing, Charlie 5, or the mind of Charlie 5, is a living thing, a living city of the mind, and it's always changing. And that's what we call the self with a lowercase s. But it's the city's designer, the planner, the one who the city reports to, the one who makes the changes on how the city is fed, the one who pushes the blood through the corridors and makes sure the chemical trains run on time, the one the ancestors in the caves all look to with hope. That's the self with the uppercase S, and it's always been there, changeless and indestructible. The self with the lowercase s is not who I am, it's what I wear. And it's what I breathe through, and it's what I dream in, and over time, while some things in the city are changeable, there are grooves that started at the beginning, like a well-worn footpath developing into Broadway in New York City, and the traffic flow there is more difficult to divert the longer it persists. But the real me is the knowing acorn who arrived in this living forest sometime between conception and birth, a divine energy that pushes like an elephant up against a mirror of Maya, the illusion, driving the flow on the other side of its mirror that is the dream that we're calling the changing self with a lowercase s, the dream driven by the eternal self with an uppercase s, a city of light. So I'm influenced by the Hindu Upanishads and other Eastern mysticism, Lingbao Taoism, Dzogchen Buddhism. I've been seeing it this way for several years now, and I have an observation of just how it, the one thing, the self, the architect of this thing called life, how it interacts with this material world. It wears it like clothing, but more clearly, it's a simple force of will that pushes up against a mirror that drives rivers in default directions through terrain, but when necessary can also push rivers uphill or sideways with even more effort, and creates a work of art, life art, a time garden in the Maya, in time. The self, with an uppercase S, does not exist, not in reality. It wears existence as clothing. It's the invisible white light that pushes against the black mirror of Maya, flowing out through the mirror's image in streams and rivers that bring magic to the valleys. And the magic that is the self with an uppercase S, it lets it move forward on rivers of wind and light that flow through the mind to wash away the petty and inappropriate demon road, so that all the loose and wayward, strange and impractical rocks of the isolated demon road are bottled up and sealed, their gaps filled and plugged with the silence and the stillness that screens off what is harmful and fierce in order to save and guide. The bizarre and harmful demon road cut off and brought to a rest in an ocean of illuminating stars, arrested in the night, sacrificed into prayer, and arriving at its mysterious, profound, subtle, and marvelous truth in the great spirit of divinity that is its source. The self with the lowercase s will never be the self. It'll never be who the self with an uppercase s is. The self with the capital S shines like the sun. The lowercase self is the garden that blossoms and fades in the self's rays. But what we call becoming who we are happens when the elephant of the self with the uppercase S pushes harder, widens the streets, breathes the clean mystery of wind and light through the city in storms of renewal that allow the smiling, unworldly happiness of the elephant to flow more freely and easily through the pulsing city of the heart and mind. The self with an uppercase S, wearing the city that is the self with a lowercase s. pushing against the black mirror of Maya to create a mind that is a city of light. There are many different theories of brain-mind, how a brain gives rise to what we call mind. Because people do experiments, so they have implicit theories, but they're rarely explicit, and the pharmaceutical industry calls the brain a black box. Just put drugs in, see what happens, maybe it helps, no idea what's going on. My brain-mind theory looks at the brain as a city with highways, and mind as the light that flies down those highways. Push hard, or too hard, or not hard enough, ideally creating a beautiful flower of light, sometimes creating a dangerous blaze of destructive mania. More often, a clogged bog with little sparks that don't make it to the destination of happiness due to road closures. I think what most of the SSRIs, the selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor medications, do is provisional. It's temporary. It's a loosening of the clogged bogs to just a little to let a few queued up sparks through. But as far as reconstructing the city's highway layout, it might be less effective. More effective, but somewhat controversial, is sending in the tanks of hallucinogens. I've seen stories recently pushing ketamine. And I think of that as a blasting and a widening of roads wherever the sparks happen to be lined up when the tanks showed up. So there could be a calm, natural human mind, and there's destruction that happens, and we bring it into the modern culture, and then you can send tanks through, but there's a big difference between this and building a finally running city. So I think that a better long-term answer is the arduous daily and never-ending task of designing the flower of light out of life. For me, that's daily spiritual practice. It's reading, it's walking for hours a day, it's a daily sauna, it's adequate sleep, it's loving relationships, it's deep, mindful breathing, it's absorbing the rain and the wind, it's looking at the sun and the moon. Ritual and altar, cultivation and practice, blending purity and stillness, pursuit of inner nature and destiny, and searching for mystery and wonder. My 5 salvific paths. Granted, these answers are not as easy to hear as magic pill, but in the long run, I find them more effective. Exercise creates new neurons, it's neurogenesis, and comes from healthy diet, daily high-intensity exercise, a hard push for someone already on that clogged road system, so maybe the tanks are to get enough light through just to get started on the actual building of the roads. There's a long way between sending tanks through a clogged bog and building a city out of light. So on the question of a purpose for the lowercase self, that city of light, I'd say it's strength and beauty. Like flowers being a better representation of the sun's light than a garbage dump. But a growing and thriving and healthy city is only as good an expression of that sun as a single flower in a simple meadow, while being more difficult to maintain in its beauty. So much of this self with a lowercase s is kind of unnecessary. It's just a work of art, no better than a simple flower. So in this vision, consciousness is a divine light. It's the wind and the light. When I say I'm the universe, when I say I'm the wind and the light, I'm saying I'm a consciousness talking to you, and it's a perspective or a theory from Eastern mysticism where this wind and light is the wind and the light, which is all of us, and speaking from inside these various temples that we call ourselves with a lowercase s. The brain is a home for the light, a home that can be optimized, and consciousness is a form of light trapped in tubes, the tubes and wells of systems of thought and identity. These lost lights can be led back out toward their source by a series of books on the bookshelves in the libraries, and unlike the streams coming down a mountain, like the streams coming down the mountain, or going whatever way on the mountain, they're eventually going to flow back out to the sea when they push hard enough. And if enough rain and snow can be gathered by the mountain from heaven to create the force that pushes all the streams to transcend their obstacles and arrive finally at home in the sea, then the streams come bursting out from ancient pools, and then the empty mind of stream beds refill, and the sea flows in to breathe through the emptiness. And the consciousness becomes the sea itself, flowing in and out of the mountain's ancient stream systems. And then it would be appropriate to say, I am the universe, I am the wind and the light. I go to Kundalini Yoga, and sometimes I sit there and I vision and I see that wind and the light, I become that wind and the light. And Kundalini Yoga is an exercise program to start with before the meditation, where I like to describe it as, well, we sit down and spend a couple hours. First we unscrew the arms off, then we unscrew the legs off, then we take off the trunk, then we take off the head, and what's left is a spine pulsing with the wind and the light. So inside, one day I saw nothing inside, and then a tiger or a lion standing up, roaring at the center. I thought, well, that's kind of interesting. And then I looked farther out, and I saw it was surrounded by two rams, bigger, surrounding it. And I looked farther out, and the whole thing was inside a giant turtle. And I looked farther out, and I saw myself. And I said, oh, well, I'm the universe. And then I saw a character, and it's not surprising because I was translating a lot of Chinese, and I was sitting there meditating. I saw this character show up, and I know what the character means. It's a very commonly seen character. Zhu means empty, vacant, untrue, unreal, emptiness, the void, space. So I saw that character and thought, well, that's kind of interesting, kind of just memory. But then I saw the character in 3D as a giant structure, which was sort of anomalous because it means emptiness or unreal. But I saw this big structure. So I looked at it, and since I was sitting there meditating, I got up on top of it, and I continued meditating on top of emptiness. And while I sat there, the whole world began to appear, growing out all along, all around, on this giant structure that means emptiness, unreal. And I thought my dark, learning, pure talk, or that's the phrase for Taoist teaching, and you could translate it as, in the pure as a clear stream calm, speech is the deep mystery beside the twin fires, the seed inside rising up and escaping into release. In another shamanism vision, this big black ball appeared, and it was my third eye, and it was just a black ball. And then the square opened up to look at me. And the ball represents Maya, the illusion. And the light inside is that one thing that wears reality, that wears the universe as its clothing. And the light inside opened up and looked right at me. And then a tree popped up behind, or surrounded by a little white fence, and then the white fence disappeared, and these long white roots rolled down like waterfalls all the way around to pool at the bottom of this ball of Maya. And so I think back to this when I say I'm the universe, or the thing that wears the universe as its clothing, and that light inside that is consciousness, that's the thing that wears the Maya. And I know it's there. But still, the universe is its clothing. And the crown is the tree of life. And there are roots that go into the Maya of reality and come up as leaves. And then there are deeper tap roots that go deeper into that one light that doesn't exist in reality, that wears reality as its clothing. And those deep tap roots nourish the tree in a way that the thin roots in reality don't. And up in the tree, the fruit is created, the flowers and then the fruit. The fruit that are prayers for all of being. So I'm socio-politico, magico, religico, astro, cosmo, sino, Charlie 5.